Imagine for a second that waking up, grabbing your coffee, and slipping into your perfectly predictable daily routine is actually the exact thing quietly destroying your potential. I know, it sounds a little dramatic, but what if I told you that the very things keeping you warm, cozy, and totally stress-free today are actively ruining your ability to handle tomorrow? We are all biologically wired to seek out comfort. It kept our ancestors alive. But in our modern world, there is a hidden psychological trap built right into your daily routine, and the craziest part is you probably locked yourself inside it on purpose. Welcome to this explainer on the lethal trap of comfort.
Okay, let's dive into this totally counterintuitive idea. We are essentially taught from day one to eliminate as much friction from our lives as possible, right? Get a stable job, settle down, find your groove, and just get cozy. But when we actually dig into the psychological research, a pretty terrifying reality emerges. Eliminating friction doesn't just put your personal development on pause, it actively throws it into reverse. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how spending an entire weekend on the couch doing absolutely nothing somehow leaves you feeling way more exhausted than a week of hard-focused work? There is a deep psychological reason for that.
So let's jump right into part one, the illusion of safety. To really understand why this exhaustion happens, we have to look closely at the invisible cage most of us are currently living in.
Now, what's genuinely fascinating about these habits is just how harmless they seem on the surface. Doing exactly what's required to not get fired, automatically grabbing your phone for a cheap dopamine hit the second you have to wait in line, or just constantly hanging out in an echo chamber of people who already agree with everything you say. This is our default setting. It's the ultimate path of least resistance. But here is the catch. Your brain is a ruthless energy optimizer. When you stay entirely within this cozy, familiar bubble, you trigger a hidden and honestly devastating mechanism inside your own mind.
And here is exactly where the trap snaps shut. Let's say you have a bit of social anxiety and you get invited to a crowded networking event. It feels intimidating, right? So you decide to skip it and just stay home. In the short term, you feel amazing. It's total relief. Current comfort has been successfully achieved. But here is the terrifying paradox. By avoiding the friction of that event, your fear doesn't just disappear. It metastasizes. It grows in the dark. Fast forward a few months, and suddenly, just picking up the phone to call a lifelong friend feels completely paralyzing. Giving in to current comfort is like taking out a high-interest loan. It absolutely guarantees a massive level of future discomfort. Psychologists call this the shrinking room effect. It's a brilliant way to visualize it. Think about putting a perfectly healthy arm into a plaster cast. Because you aren't actively using that muscle, your body literally stops sending resources to it, and it physically atrophies. Your psychological resilience works the exact same way. If you aren't regularly testing your boundaries, the world around you actually starts to shrink. You don't just stay the same, you become actively less capable of handling the basic, everyday obstacles that life throws your way. You think you're staying safe, but you're actually just slowly suffocating your own potential.
Which naturally brings us to part two, entering the growth zone. So how exactly do we escape this shrinking room before it crushes us completely?
Well, we have to intentionally cross over into the growth zone. But wait, this is a crucial distinction. This does not mean you should just go out and blindly seek misery. There is a massive difference between useless pain and productive struggle. Breaking your leg is incredibly painful, but it offers zero long-term benefit to your life. That's just useless pain. Productive struggle is entirely different. It's the highly specific, targeted friction of resisting a craving, the intense burn of lifting weights, or the massive frustration you feel when studying a totally new, complex topic. It feels incredibly awkward and terrible in the moment, absolutely. But what you're actually doing is permanently upgrading your mental software. We all have to internalize this simple, unavoidable truth. The things with the absolute highest payoff in life are always going to feel remarkably difficult in the present moment. When you try to speak a new language for the first time, you are going to sound pretty foolish. When you first step into a commercial gym, you might feel incredibly weak and out of place. But here is the mindset shift. Feeling like an incompetent beginner isn't a red flag telling you to quit. It is literally the ultimate sign of progress. It is proof that you have finally stepped outside of that shrinking room.
Let's move to part three, 3 levers of change. Because knowing you need to struggle is one thing, but you can't just blindly sprint into hardship. The source material reveals a very specific, strategic arsenal to increase your difficulty without destroying yourself.
So, if you want to expand your capabilities, you basically have 3 primary levers you can pull. Think of it like a mixing board for your habits. Let's use running as an example. Your first lever is consistency.
Simply doing the thing more often. Instead of running 3 days a week, you bump it up to 4. Your second lever is intensity, doing a much more potent, difficult version of the activity. Instead of a light, breezy jog, you do uphill sprints at 90% of your max capacity. And your third lever is duration, just doing the exact same thing but for longer, running for 30 minutes instead of 20. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that you only need to pull one of these 3 levers at a time to effectively force your brain and body into adaptation mode.
Let's look at how you'd actually apply this in the real world, like if you wanted to learn the guitar. If you get super motivated and try to pull all 3 levers at the exact same time, say playing every single day for 2 hours at a time, practicing only the most intense, expert-level songs, you are literally guaranteed to quit by Tuesday. It's just too much friction. Instead, you just pull the consistency lever. You practice for merely 10 minutes, but you commit to doing it every single day. No exceptions. Whether you are using active recall for a new skill or just adding one extra sentence to your daily social interactions, these small, highly strategic tweaks are infinitely more powerful than massive outbursts of unstructured effort.
Now for part 4, beware the danger zone. This brings us to a really fascinating psychological mystery. If being in the growth zone is so incredibly beneficial for us, why do almost all of us actively run away from it after our first real attempt at self-improvement?
Okay, I can almost guarantee that you or someone you know very well has lived through this exact painful crash cycle. On day 1, you watch an incredibly motivating video, you feel that spark, and you decide to radically reinvent your entire life by tomorrow morning. By day 3, you're at the gym 5 days a week, doing 2-a-days, and you've aggressively cut every single ounce of sugar and carbs from your diet. But what you've actually done is blown right past the growth zone and landed straight into the danger zone. By day 15, your mind and body are totally overwhelmed, sounding massive internal alarm bells. And by day 30, you are completely burnt out, back on the couch, binge-watching Netflix with a massive box of cookies, right back to the exact baseline where you started.
See, when you push way too far, way too fast, your body essentially uses severe discomfort as an emergency handbrake to prevent injury or total system failure. But the ultimate tragedy of this cycle isn't just that you failed a 30-day diet. That's no big deal. The real lasting danger is that this spectacular crash actually hardwires a deeply false belief into your brain. It creates this quiet subconscious narrative that whispers, "I tried my absolute hardest and I still failed, therefore I must be entirely incapable of change." You literally rob yourself of your own future potential, and all because of nothing more than bad pacing.
Which leads us to part 5, the retraction method. To prevent this catastrophic crash from ever happening again, we need to completely redefine how we approach our daily ambitions.
The sustainable ascent might not be glamorous enough to make a viral montage on social media, but you know what? It actually works in the real world. By starting with just a manageable 45-minute session 3 times a week, you aren't just slowly building physical muscle, you are building something far more critical. You are building a positive feedback loop. You are fundamentally proving to your own brain that you can actually keep a promise to yourself. Success fuels success. By purposefully starting small, you create this incredible domino effect of confidence that slowly bleeds into every single other area of your life.
This chart right here visualizes the true underlying secret of this entire explainer. There is a massive myth out there that high achievers are just constantly, endlessly grinding upward with ever stopping to take a breath. The reality is actually a highly strategic cycle. You start at your old baseline of comfort. Then you purposefully push yourself into difficulty to reach what we call peak expansion. But then, and this is the absolute most critical part, you don't try to stay there forever. You purposefully retract. You lower the difficulty slightly to let your mind, your nervous system, and your body catch up and consolidate those new demands. This creates a brand new baseline that is permanently higher than where you originally started. Have you ever noticed how walking away from a really difficult puzzle or a tough work problem suddenly helps you solve it in the shower? That is the retraction cycle working its magic.
And honestly, this completely shifts how we should be viewing comfort. The comfort zone isn't some evil, toxic place. Think of it more like base camp on the side of Mount Everest. You come up for air so you don't literally drown in the struggle of the climb. You might choose to keep your professional life in an intense, highly demanding growth zone for a few months while intentionally letting your fitness goals temporarily rest in a comfortable maintenance mode. You use comfort highly strategically to recover and consolidate, but you never, ever let it become your permanent residence.
As we wrap up this analysis, I want to leave you with a thought. Most psychological estimates suggest that we are living our entire lives at about 40% of our true capacity. And why? Simply because unlocking that other 60% requires a little bit of sweat, a little bit of social awkwardness, and a few brief moments of feeling like a foolish beginner again.
But think about it. If you never intentionally push yourself to the boundary, how can you ever actually know where your true limits lie?
The good news is we do not have to overhaul our entire lives by tomorrow morning, but we absolutely have to stop letting the room shrink around us. So here is your actionable step. Find your worthy challenge today. Read just one more page than you normally would. Do literally one more rep at the gym. Have one slightly uncomfortable, honest conversation that you've been putting off. Pull just one lever of difficulty today and then let your mind catch up tomorrow. So I'll ask you one last time. What are you genuinely capable of achieving if you just stopped giving up at the very first taste of friction?